Yo, what's up guys? Inko here with a new build, and this is an update to my 3.16 starter actually, Hexblast Ignite Elementalist. A lot of you have been asking for it, so went ahead on stream the other day and updated it. Couple changes. We're going to use a Covenant chest so we can get it because it's really cheap and it gives us level 15 added chaos for some nice damage. The gameplay footage you're seeing here is with Martyr of Innocence. Another change is we're using the Dodri helmet instead of Eye of Malice. You're still more than fine to use Eye of Malice. Dodri's is just more consistent. But in theory, Eye of Malice should be more damage in general against map bosses. We also just went ahead and went into 2 pyres just because it's so much damage. You can definitely use a rare ring, even a Dodri's ring for an additional curse if you want, while leveling early when you don't have like Vixens. Also, we made the change that you can have the choice of any 50% aura you want, so you can choose to either use Grace, Purity of Elements, or Malevolence. I would personally recommend using Purity of Elements while leveling, just because immunity to ailments and res, so you don't have to stress capping your resistance as much, is an absolute dream. The build, unfortunately, still a little slow, at least for me personally, as I normally play pretty quick builds, but I mean, that's just kind of the movement speed nerfs. You're kind of at the mercy of Flame Dash, to be honest. But other than that, I mean, it still plays like a dream. We're still really tanky with determination. Even with this bad gear, we're sitting around 14k armor unbuffed. We should actually have a roomies in this gameplay footage and like defensive flasks, but you know, obviously I did not update those flasks when we were streaming. So there's that, but they will be included in the POB. Also, you definitely want to start leveling with a wand and a shield. Ash Collars are absolutely amazing for leveling early, and you can get them really early. And you'll want to start leveling the build with like Fireball, Flame Wall, stuff like that, and it'll make it really easy, especially with the buffs coming to Fireball. Fireball should hit like a truck early on. Nice little X drop there. But yeah. We also changed to have Immolate in our main links, which makes it so you're not as dependent on Battle Mage, Martyr of Innocence to proc the Elementalist node for 25% more damage with Ignites. You can actually use Searing Touch, and also in a Wand and Shield setup, you will also be getting that bonus, which is something we were kind of like restricted to before. And it should be even more damage with the effectiveness of coming, the 100% effectiveness boost coming to Hexblast, which is pretty nice for us. And it's a little offset by the 23% less nerf to Ignite, or sorry, 28% less damage to Ignite nerf. But yeah, I mean, Ignite build plays like a dream. You get into a 1-button playstyle once you're occultist early on. It just helps with clear if you do self-cast the curse. You don't have to wait for Doomsday to go off, but it triggers Doom Blast from Impending Doom. And yeah, we'll hop over to some janky gear gameplay and go over everything. Hope you guys enjoy. So we'll start off with going into worst gear. Like, this would be worst case scenario. Your RNG is absolutely terrible. Grab our roomies really quick. Instead of that, like you can't get a 6-link Covenant or, you know, any 6-link that's like armor hybrid based. So if that's the case, we actually drop efficacy, because with Covenant, it makes our skills cost life, so you can't use inspiration with this. Just something to be clear. If you're not in a Covenant chest, you drop efficacy for inspiration. So we have Hexblast, Ignite Proliferation, Deadly Ailments, Burning Damage, Immolate, and Inspiration. And here we have an Ash Collar. My gems real quick. So just an Ash Collar, and then just a random shield with some life and +1 chaos. Put those in. Okay, we're still res capped. This here. Put these on. Sorry, didn't really have my secondary bar set up. Alright, so we'll do a bog map. T16. Mind you, our block is going to be a lot lower here because we have staff nodes. You would want to take shield nodes if you were doing this. These still work, but the staff nodes, we're not getting the bonus of increased defenses while wielding a staff or the regen on block. Very strong, and why we ultimately opt for a staff. And with this new setup, mainly because of Immolate, you can actually use a Searing Touch and be completely fine with it. Don't know what that lag is, but oh, he gone. We'll explain the rotation and everything. But as you can see, T16 map down. Absolutely like very, very cheap gear. Nothing crazy with it. Nothing funny. You know, like 19 gems. Like, we literally leveled this character on stream. So. And obviously clearing, as with all Ignite builds, is, you know, just a dream. But we can show more of that before we go over the gear and the rotations and everything. So with this version, you do have to... You don't have to. See if I don't get ran over by Rose. But it helps to clear if you just curse. You don't have to wait for Doomsday to go off to actually trigger and then kill stuff. But yeah, we can really tell that we have quite low defenses because we're not spec'd for a shield. I just wanted to show if you get like very, very unlucky in the league. And I'll also make a POB for a staff version and a shield version. That way, you know, obviously league starting, you're not going to have like a Searing Touch or a decent staff with like level Chaos Gems, fire damage over time multiplier, stuff like that. Or, you know, a Martyr, for instance. Yeah, this is the clearing on it with absolutely nothing. This is a T16 map, Awakened 8, everything unlocked. Okay. Want to show that if you're absolutely unlucky, you know, Awakener 8, everything done. And the one thing to make sure, so no matter what option you're going, whether, well, you're going to start off more than likely with a wand and a shield. 100% make sure that when you have this node, you want to get Immolate in as fast as possible. Because it adds fire damage against burning enemies, and with Shaper Flames, you get 25% more damage with Ignites you inflict, which the highest damage type is fire. Now, normally that's, you know, completely fine. And, you know, Immolate takes care of that. But make sure in POB, when you're looking, that your fire damage is the highest. Now, it's not going to show in the tooltip, unfortunately, because we're not hitting a burning enemy. So that's why you see there's no fire. Well, there's a little bit of fire damage there from Ashcaller. But you want to make sure after the calculations that Immolate is, well, not Immolate, but fire damage is the highest. And then that way you're proccing the 25% more damage. And basically it's carried by Immolate. You can get a little flat on your wand or stuff to compensate. If you're like in a Covenant at, it gives 15 added chaos, but it's not that big of a deal. That's easily to overcome, and that's why with this setup with using Immolate, you can actually use the Searing Touch as a budget option, because Martyr of Innocence, we don't know what the price is going to be on League Start. I know when I League started this league, I think I paid 80C for mine on the second day, and don't really know the prices, so just saying this might be the only expensive item in the build. Covenants are worth like nothing, or you know, like I just showed, you can use a Tabula. And when you're in a Covenant, your setup is for the most part the same, but because this makes your gems blood magic, do not use Inspiration. Instead of Inspiration, use Efficacy, or you could also use Swift Affliction. Swift Affliction will boost your Ignite DPS, but it's going to lower your duration. Personally, for me preference, I would just say make sure your Ignite duration is somewhere between 4 to 5 seconds. And when we're in our staff nodes, I don't have, right gems over here, but it's fine. We have pretty good defenses. And this is unbuffed and everything. Probably better. This is unbuffed. Our defenses, we have nothing. And when we get Enduring Composure Jewel, which I definitely recommend you guys rush as soon as possible, that is also going to be boosted. So, our gems. Well, we can just swap back and show these. You want to be running a cast when damage taken, increased duration, Molten Shell, Ball Molten Shell preferably, a Flame Surge to help boost single target against bosses, a Flame Dash and Arcane Surge. Martyr of Innocence, when you have the money, is the primo weapon. Obviously does a lot more damage. So we use Impending Doom, Combustion, and Flammability. So Flammability is actually what we are self-casting. And through our Vixens, we are also casting Punishment and Elemental Weakness. Make sure you have enough mana because they count as a trigger. So casting Flammability itself is 57 mana. Casting Elemental Weakness is 28. Casting Punishment is 29. Make sure you have enough mana to cast those. And you can drop this. Later on, we'll be using like Ink AoE, and that would save you some mana. But just make sure you have enough mana to trigger those through your gloves. Because I've had questions before from my past video. People saying like, why aren't my curses triggering and stuff for my gloves? Because they didn't have enough unreserved mana to cast them. And then we have Wave of Conviction, Combustion. This is used for exposure and boosted from Mastermind of Discord. So your rotation typically on a boss, you curse, you want to wait for Doomsday to go off, which is that explosion. And then while you're waiting for the explosion to go off, you Wave of Conviction them for exposure, and then you Hexblast. And after you Hexblast, immediately you want to use your Flammability again, because you want that Flammability curse on them. And Hexblast will remove that curse when you Hexblast them. And I know if like your first time here, it probably sounds a lot confusing in that. I'll link a video in the description where I explain Doomsday interactions, Hexblast, and how it works. ELDR, Doomsday procs your Flammability, or whatever curse you are self-casting yourself after a second, and that has max Doom. Doom equals curse effect. Hexblast, when you Hexblast a cursed enemy, it removes a curse, and depending on how much Doom is on there, it gains more damage with ailments per Doom. So that's why we boost our Doom. And when Doomsday goes off, every enemy inside this circle that is then cursed has max Doom of Flammability. Blasphemy curses and trigger curses cannot gain Doom inherently. They are just there for the extra curse. And then we are rocking 2 Pyre Rings, a Dank Amulet with Arsonist Anoint, which is 2 Verdants and Azure, pretty sure. We have Clarity. We swapped to a Dodri Scorn. Covenant went over those links. Just a Stygian Vice with some life and strength. That, but yeah, just life and some res. Vitality, Defiance Banner, Malevolence, and Determination. So with Malevolence, you have a bunch of options. Instead of Malevolence, you can use Purity of Elements, or you can use Grace. And with Grace, we will actually get a fairly good chunk of evasion on top of our armor. And personally, what I did when I started this build, I used Purity of Elements, but looking back, I think Grace is going to be an amazing option because of this staff mastery specifically, which is 30% increased defenses while wielding a staff. So not only is it boosting your armor, it's also going to boost your evasion. And right now, like, we're only 10k, but we have hardly any stats in this gear. Like this is League starter uniques. You obviously don't want to stay in a Covenant. You want to get into an armor with armor and or evasion if you're stacking that. Otherwise, just armor or armor and ES. But the nice thing about if you go armor and evasion is you can get spell suppression. So you could be spell suppression capped, you can have really high armor, and you can have really high evasion. So that is something to consider. But I would definitely recommend getting into an Enduring Composure Jewel as soon as possible. That is also going to boost our tankiness a lot. Not only do these small clusters give you increased armor, 15%, but also Enduring Composure, you get more fizz reduction. And then once you're into that, definitely take this max endurance charge node. And yeah, we tested a bunch of different gear. Ultimately, this is what we decided on. Hexblast did get a pretty nice nerf this league. You know, nothing to scoff at. And I will also be including the min-maxed version of the occultist. We'll have a leveling POB. The min-maxed occultist version, you do need a black flame, which is why it's something you build into. You start with the Elementalist version because you get easy ignites in that case. And the end game of the occultist version versus this one, I mean, you're going to have like anywhere from 4 to 6 times more damage than this one. But it's also more expensive and everything. That's why it's something you build into. This is just a stepping stone to get into that. And then obviously, you know, from here, this is where you start to get jewels and cluster jewels and stuff. Like your tree's pretty much done here. And your jewels, you're looking for, you know, your fire damage over time multiplier, burning damage, life, generic nodes to boost damage over time multiplier, or damaging amulets deal damage faster. All of those are great. And I definitely recommend building into a staff, whether it be Martyr of Innocence, Searing Touch, or just a rare staff with like level of Chaos Gems, generic damage over time multiplier, fire damage over time multiplier, fire damage, you name it, all those things. Ultimately, in the end game of the occultist, your chase weapon is a Cane of Kulamak, but we'll talk about all that in a later video. But yeah, this is a very smooth starter. I played it in 3.17. Let me know what you guys think of it. If you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and take care.